for most of my life, I didn't even realize just how much going through my personal trauma, going through sexual abuse, rape as a child, just how much it affected me, how much it affected my life, the way that I see my body, the way I am in relationships and sex. It had such a profound effect on me. And yet, I spent so much effort just trying to shut it out, just exclude it from my life story. I spent so much effort just making sure that nobody knows about it because I was, I guess, ashamed of it. That I made it so difficult for me to go on, to fall in love, to see myself as a person who deserves love, who can have sex, who can be happy, right? That's what it's all about, isn't it? Going through a difficult time, going through a traumatic event, experiencing difficulties and challenges in your life, and yet still finding a way to be happy, right? That's what we talk about today. How do you take your life story that includes challenges, that includes struggles, that might include traumatic events, and yet direct it in a way that puts you in a place where you feel good, where you bring more love in your life, where you have hope that things can change for the better, where you experience joy and just a sense of connection with such a deep level with people around you. That's the freedom we get when we can direct our life story in a place, in the direction that you want it to go. And why do I say life story? And what I mean by that? Well, what I would love for you to consider for a moment is that life, our life, is a story. Right? It's a story that we tell ourselves. It's a story that we tell others. We might say it's a series of stories that might be connected in some way, shape, or form. And that has a huge impact. Because if we start to look at our life as a story, it does several things for us. First of all, we always tell it in a different way. Right? So it's not fixed. Right? It doesn't stay in one place. It means we can change things. We tell it in a different way every time. Not only because you would tell it, if something's happened in your life, you tell it in a different way, but also it changes the way that you make meaning out of it, right? Because the way that you looked at something, 20 years ago is different to the way you look at it 10 years ago. And it'll certainly be different to the way that you look at it today, right? So we get a different perspective depending on our experience, and it's also shaped by how we share our experience, how we talk about it with others, right? So stories, they go forward, don't they? It's a weird thing to say, but stories, even if you kind of jump back and forth between things that happen, but stories have a way of going forward, right? That's how we tell stories. It's something that propels you forward. And that is a powerful image. Right? That's powerful because we want to go forward in life, especially if you've been through difficult times, especially if you live through trauma, through struggle. You don't want to stay in a place where it still hurts. We want to be able to find ways to move on. We want to be able to find ways to really move forward. Another thing about a story, if we put ourselves in a place where life is a story, it's our life story, it means that you can be creative. How cool is that? We all can be creative. I guess for a large chunk of my life, I never thought of myself as being creative. And yet, we can express ourselves. You can express yourself in a way that is true to you by the way that you live your life. How cool is that? That you can be creative and expressive with what you do. And you choose what happens. You choose how to tell that story. Why is that important? Well, it's huge, my friend, because it's so important to distinguish between events that take place in a particular time and place, but also how we make meaning out of them. And that is so crucial to distinguish between difficult circumstance or event, something that really took place in your life, that was difficult, that was a struggle, might still be, and position it as something that happened, that's taken place in our life, not as opposed to something that we can redefine and change the meaning of how we look at it today. So we can look at it from a perspective of today in the past, and we can start to make a totally different meaning out of it. So the story we start to change and shift. And that's what we talk about today. How do you do that? Because stories, the cool thing about them is they are interactive, right? It's not something that is stuck in stone, right? I don't know if that's an expression, stuck in stone. Did I just combine two different things? I think I have. But the key is stories are interactive, right? Because you interact with people around you. You think about things differently. You do things, right? So in effect, you direct your life where you want it to go. And that includes things that you have experienced, things that just threw you off, things that had an impact on you. And we want to make it a part of our story so that we learn to live with it. We learn to grow. We learn to have hope. We learn to find a deeper sense of connection and open up and express yourself the way that you are with people around you, and do things that you love. Do things that you truly believe in. Do things that truly inspire you. And to be a person who is happy with being yourself. It's weird, but for the longest time in my life, and I didn't really realize that this was connected to my experience of being a survivor of child sexual abuse, but I couldn't stare myself in the mirror. I couldn't look myself in the mirror. This isn't, by the way, some metaphor. Like I couldn't stand looking at myself in the mirror. Like physically, I did not like that process. It was uncomfortable for me. And so going through experience in life where I fell in what I thought was love. I met this person. I was really just so excited about her and fell in love, but I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't have sex. I felt like there was a part of me that was blocked. Something was numbed out. And it really scared me. Like, that really scared me. It was so scary because I was alone. I thought, what am I going to do now? There's going to be a whole part of my life that's shut off. I kind of kept going, and over time, I was able to have sex, but I was always paranoid about. I was always freaking out about what would happen. Like, what if it would happen again? I mean, maybe it's all just a fluke or coincidence, or luck, And even when this relationship really wasn't going well for me, the person I was with, they cheated on me, and one day she called me up and said, listen, I'd love to just spend some time alone. And it kind of came out of the blue, and I was taken aback. And a few days later, I found out that she left me for somebody else. And it hurt me so deep. I went into depression. My anxiety went through the roof. I started drinking heavily. I lost 10 kilos in the space of 1 week. Not for a good reason. I'd love to be able to do that today, But I was under this incredible amount of stress. And a huge part of me was just angry. Just so angry. Angry at her, but also angry at me. I was like, why did I let myself go through this and be treated in a way that I'm not supposed to be treated? Don't I want something better for me despite my fears, despite my struggles? Don't I want something better? And by the way, at that point, I still, the smart thing to say would be, go and get help. Go and get medical professional, get a psychologist, get a psychiatrist, get a counselor, get a whole bunch of different things. But I was afraid. I was afraid of doing that because I thought the damage was done. I thought, what can they do now, right? I didn't know what it would look like. So I was afraid of showing up and getting help. If there's one thing, my friend, by the way, that I regret in my life, it's one thing. It's this. Going through it alone. That's been the biggest struggle. That was the real struggle. That event, that situation was incredibly traumatic, but I never, for so many years, for most of my life, and I never found a way to really deal with it. It's only recently that I feel I'm in such a much better place. So I remember I was alone, I was angry, I was scared. And I remember I was one of the ways that I would cope is I would work these crazy hours, right? And I remember I stayed in the office so late one night, and I was driving back home, and I was just I couldn't stop thinking about it all. And I remember I stopped at the red light. I stopped, and I'm just sitting there. I'm just looking ahead, and I say to myself, this will never happen to me again. I won't allow myself to be in a place where I get treated in a way that I don't deserve. I don't want to be in a place ever again where I'm with a person who betrays me and my feelings, because I deserve love. I want to give love. I want to be loved in return. I didn't know what that would look like. And I know I desperately wanted it, but I was in a place where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get love. I was in a place where I couldn't look myself in the mirror, you know? So when my mom asked me, she said, what do you want for your birthday? And I remember saying, I want this huge mirror. And so my mom bought me this massive mirror, right, which I hung on the wall, right? And by the way, we still have this mirror in the garage here. I hung this mirror on the wall. And every day I would stand in front of this mirror and I would look at myself. I would stand naked, right? Every day. And I would look at myself in the eyes. I would just look at my body and I would say, you're beautiful. You're sexy. You deserve to give love and be loved in return. It was hard for me to say that because I did not feel beautiful. I did not feel sexy. I didn't feel myself deserving of anything, including love. But I kept doing it every single day. Even though I should have gotten help. Because horrible things could have happened. But I still did this. I kept showing up every day. I went into self-help. I was reading books. I remember listening to audio books. I remember one day coming home and I had this podcast on, and the voice was talking about locus of control and how we get to control our life. And it just blew my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, it's up to me. It's all up to me. So I kept doing it. I kept showing up as best as I could. I kept saying myself these things. I kept doing all of this work. I started spending so much more time on my own, right? I realized I was afraid also of spending time on my own. So I learned how to accept more of who I am, my body, spending time doing things that I liked doing, feeling good about myself. And that was just an incredibly transformational experience for me. That was a huge change in my life because feeling good allowed me to go out into the world, to look at other people, to feel good, to connect, to be with others, and eventually allowed me to meet the love of my life. Well, I found this incredible connection on every level, just emotional, physical. Just like she gets me. She gets me for who I am. And the biggest reason why I was able to find that person that I love and to find that incredible sense of connection was due to acceptance. I found a way to accept who I am. At least part of me, right? Because it's a journey, right? But I was able to accept who I am and how I show up in the world. I was able to accept that I am deserving of love. That I've got so much to give. I've got so much to give. And I deserve to be loved in return. And that sense of acceptance, accepting yourself, there isn't like seeking validation from others. I'm just talking about accepting yourself. It's not a one-off, right? It's a journey. It's what we make a part of our story. We weave that into our story because we act. we do things that help us to acknowledge who you are, that help you accept the way that what you are on the inside. Because I'll tell you this, and this is something that I say to all of my clients that I work with one-on-one, is when you accept your true self, you give yourself the permission to be your best self. Accepting your true self gives you permission to be your best self. Because when we can accept our life story in its entirety, including the things that are painful, including the things that are tough, including the things that you're scared of, including the things you regret, when we can accept that, that allows us to move forward. And that is a process. That is a process we go through by doing things that help you to live your story, the way your true, authentic self. Doing things that are in line with who you are, that help you feel good about yourself, help you express yourself in a way that makes sense to you. Right? Whether that's being physical and doing yoga or exercise or walking or doing jogging or some kind of a sport. Whether it's expressing yourself creatively and artistically through journaling or visual arts or writing or acting or theater. I love theater, by the way. I'm writing a play right now, which I'm really excited about, because that's also, the play talks about acceptance and hope. It's called Giver of Hope. And that helps me on my journey of acceptance, because we never really kind of get off the journey, right? We're always on the journey of acceptance. So practicing that and expressing your true, authentic self in a way that feels true to you, whether that's through conversations, whether that's through creativity and doing what feels like you're expressing yourself, whether that's doing things with your body and movement that help you go places, that all helps us to heal, to accept who we really are, the entirety of our experience. And that's what helps us to move forward. I also found that acceptance by looking in the mirror, by staring myself in the mirror and repeating things that I wanted to believe. That I am beautiful. That I am sexy. Which was a super uncomfortable word for me to say. That I am deserving of love. So I want to take a moment and ask you, what do you say to yourself when you look yourself in the mirror? What sort of things do you say? Do you make eye contact? What would you say to yourself? I mean, if you look maybe in the morning, maybe at night, maybe during the day, if you would just to look at yourself and just take a moment to think, what would you say to yourself? Maybe you would set yourself up for the day. Maybe you would say, I hope whatever you say would be something positive, something helpful, something that supports you, something that encourages you to go out and live well, to be at your best, whatever that is for you, right? Because that's such a huge thing. But I tell you what, when you act, and we only talked about the A, I'm going to tell you more, we only talked about the A part of it, of act. Acceptance. We'll get to the rest of it. But when you talk about acceptance, I'm going to speed up because I've spent a lot of time talking about acceptance. But acceptance is such a crucial part, because when we get to act on our story, when we get to be in the moment and be present with who we really are, that's what helps us go forward. That's what helps us to direct our story towards the life that you truly want, the life that you truly deserve. And tell you what, sometimes when you do things, and maybe you don't really know how things are going to work out, and you don't know, and you're just going to try things out, right? Some of it might work for you, some of it might not. But you are so much more likely when you act to find what you need, not what you thought you wanted. Isn't it true? Isn't it true that sometimes in life, when you go and do things, right, sometimes you end up finding the thing that you really need. You didn't even know you needed it, even when you wanted something else, right? But you tend to find what you need in life. Like for me, that experience was, I was at the start of the year. I'm originally from Ukraine. And when the whole Russia invasion of Ukraine started, it shook me up so much to my very core. I mean, reading about this murders, rape, torture happening at such a scale. A place where I grew up. I also grew up in occupied Ukraine. But and speaking with friends and family over there, it really brought up all of these feelings, just was turning me inside out. I felt like I had to do something. So I started writing a play, right? Because in my 20s, I did this short course on how to write 10-minute plays. And it was a lot of fun. I made lots of friends, and we'd put shows together, We put shows and put on a bunch of different plays. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. I loved theater. I loved just kind of the whole expression of it. And I thought, why don't I write a play? Which is the play I'm writing right now, Give of Hope. Why don't I write a play that would kind of reflect some of the thoughts I have about what's this war in Ukraine and just life and what's important to me. And so every spare moment I had, every spare chance, I would write. I would be sitting there typing away. And I spent 3 months writing. I got my first draft ready. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really clever, And so I wanted to, get feedback on it, because I thought, I want to see if I'm on the right track, right? So where I live in Melbourne, Australia, there is a Victorian College of the Arts. It's a fantastic institution for just, if you want to become an artist, if you want to, do visual arts or an act. I've had several friends there, so I thought, why don't I reach out to somebody who's teaching there, right? And so I found this website. I had a look, and I started reading about different folks teaching at the university, right? Because they have their kind of profiles there, right? And I found this lady who, on her profile, I saw something interesting. She was also doing this program that helps women who've been through sexual abuse, to helping them heal. And I was reading about it. It was like this combination of like journaling and boxing. I was reading about it. I was like, this is incredible. I'd love to connect with this person, right? So I sent her an email and said, listen, I want to thank you for what you do, right? Because I can connect with sexual abuse, because that's kind of my story as well. So I want to thank you for doing what you do in the world. And listen, I'm writing this play. It was kind of triggered by this war in Ukraine. I'd love to get your thoughts. just tell me what you think. Maybe we could catch up for coffee, and I'd love to get your thoughts. So we did that. She agreed to do that, which was really exciting. So I came to VCA, and we sat down in this little courtyard. And I remember she had these notes, right? She didn't go great, so she's read it, And then she said something that really kind of took me by surprise. She looked at me and she said, Joe, tell me, why did you reach out to me specifically? I was like, I don't know. And she said, have you ever shared your story with anyone? And I started telling her about it. And it was such an incredible experience, just being able to talk about it with another person who's been through it. And all of these emotions just started just coming out of me, It was like explosion, like a torrent of feelings, thoughts just coming out. And I remember she said to me, it feels like you've been holding this back. And in your play, we need to hear your voice. And I really took that to heart. And I came home, and the next day I went jogging in the morning. It was early morning. I was in the bush. And I remember she said something to me. She said, you're a survivor. And I kept thinking about it. And I thought, you're a survivor. I know what that means now. I was so overcome by that. I fell on my knees. And I was just sitting there, just crying, But remember, I stood up. I looked at the sunrise. I pointed to it and said, you are who you are. You are who you are. You're a survivor. You know what that means now. It's your duty to share that with the world. Help others. Help them be what they can be themselves, true selves. It was such a moment for me. So the next day, well, actually that same day, I threw out everything that I wrote. I started from scratch. And now this play, it's a completely different story, but now this is real. Now this is me. This is my story. Well, not my story, but it talks about things that are real. But it also talks about hope. It also talks about finding a way to move forward and being happy despite what's happened to you. Accepting your true self. That's what it's about. And that is really the C in ACT. Clarity. Finding clarity, I was only able to do that because I was trying to express myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what was going on. I've never written a full-length play, but I knew it was in my heart, even though I still didn't connect it with the story of wanting to do what I do. I didn't connect it with my story from my childhood. So being able to express that gave me the clarity of being the person that I truly want to be, moving forward, expressing myself. It gave me the clarity to rewrite the play. It unleashed all of this creativity that's built up inside me, because I thought it was this one thing, but accepting that part of me opened me up to possibilities, and there's so much that often lies beyond. We think it's one thing, this traumatic time in our lives, but when we open up, when we find ways to help us heal, when we find ways to accept that part of ourselves, when we start to do it, it opens up so many possibilities. It gave me the clarity to my mission in life, to my creativity, to the play. I mean, was this incredible thing, right? And that's what clarity is. It's just a way to really to get answers, right? It's just a way to get answers to whatever it is that you want. And like we talked about, sometimes you don't know what you want. Maybe you want one thing, but you find what you need. You discover what you need, which might not be the thing you wanted in the first place. You know, for me, I wanted to get feedback on the play, but what I got was so much more. I got this acceptance. I've got this revelation. I got this incredible connection. Right? That wasn't what I was even considering at the time. You know? But that's what really clarity is. And that's why acceptance is a whole story that weaves through it all. And getting clarity is so vital for us to find our way forward. And that clarity also gave me an ability to, which is trust. To trust that I can do this. To trust that I can now be able to share this story with someone that I couldn't do it for decades of my life, you know? To be able to trust. And trust, for me, I think trust is just truth. Right? Just telling your truth. And being able to trust someone is being able to express yourself and just tell your truth. You can tell it in any way that you want to. That's why your life story is so powerful, because you choose how to tell it, when to tell it, in whatever way that you want to tell it. And when you can accept, when you can get clarity, when you can trust yourself and put trust in others to connect, whether that's with a medical specialist, whether it's with your partner, whether it's with your friend, whether it's with someone in your community, that just helps us heal. That helps you to feel good about yourself and the world around you. To find ways to feel good. And that is also a reflection. We reflect on our experience, right? Just the way that you would see your reflection in the mirror, right? Our reflection on life is a reflection of who you truly are and the person that you want to be in your life moving forward. Things happen in life, sometimes terrible, difficult things, hurtful things. And they're part of our life. But what is our life story? The life story that you're willing to tell. Most importantly, what is the life story that you are willing to live? For me, as part of my stories, I share it in this book, Finding Hope in Times of Uncertainty, a guide to thriving in the challenging world of today. This book, I talk about how to find hope in a challenging time, how to build hope towards things that your dreams and aspirations in life, and also how to give hope, which is how do you share hope with others, and especially if they themselves might have been in a difficult situation themselves. If you're interested to find out more about this book, go to powertobehappy.com. That's powertobehappy.com. You'll find all the episodes of our show. You'll find more about this book, find out about Clarity First, which is the program that I do, working with people one-on-one, helping them get breakthrough, massive breakthrough in their lives. But I want to leave you with this, my friend. That you have the power to be happy. You know? to see greater clarity in everything that you do, to show up at your best every single day so that you, not anyone else, you know that you are enough. And to hold on to hope, that no matter how crazy things get, things can and do change for the better. That's why, my friend, it is time to act, to practice, because these are the three practices. Acceptance, accepting your true self. Remember that when accepting your true self gives you permission to be your best self. Clarity, seeking clarity, trying to figure things out, trying things that you haven't done before, seeing what works and what doesn't, asking the questions of yourself and others. You'll figure it out. You've done it before. You'll do it again, my friend. And then having the trust that you can do this, that you can find so much, such greater depth of connection, love, care, understanding, belonging with people in your life, in your community, in your family, in your circle of friends, and people that you care about. Trust is truth. Telling your truth in a way that makes sense to you. My name is Joe Bakhmutsky. For more, go to powertobehappy.com. I want to thank you for being here. See you soon.